Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and good day to all of our beloved viewers to the Voice of the Cape YouTube page and the Voice of the Cape's Facebook page. My name is Amir Adams, and it gives me great honor and privilege to be able to introduce to you our guest tutor for today, who will be continuing the Voice of the Cape's Matric Revision series. And of course, this is none other than Mr. Riedwaan Bassier, who will be giving over content pertaining to engineering, graphics, and design. As a reminder to all of our beloved viewers to the Voice of the Cape's YouTube and Facebook page, this is the Voice of the Cape's online matric revision program for the year 2024. And our main sponsor this year is the Two Oceans Graduate Institute, which is an accredited online platform where you can become a primary school or a high school teacher by studying in the privacy of your own home. If you'd like to find out more information pertaining to our main sponsor for this year's matric revision sessions, you may contact them on the number 021 829 7015, or you may visit their website www.togi.ac.za, and that is pertaining to the Two Oceans Graduate Institute, our main sponsor for this year's matric revision series on the Voice of the Cape. Without further ado, it gives us great honor and privilege to be handing over to Mr. Riedwaan Bassier, who specializes in engineering, graphics, and design. And Mr. Riedwaan Bassier will facilitate today's session dedicated to all the EGD students, the engineering, graphics, and design students, where Mr. Bassier will go through for content for EGD, inshallah. Without further ado, we hand over to Mr. Bassier to facilitate today's matric revision session. All yours, sir.
Shukran Amir, shukran everyone. Good afternoon, assalamu alaikum, and greetings to everyone, all the matriculants. Once again, another session that will be beneficial to you for your preparation for the NSC examination, specifically looking at engineering, graphics, and design. And I quickly want to show you where we are in the series of programs that we've been running over a couple of weeks leading up to the NSC exam. And if you look on my screen at the moment, you will see we are completing our paper 1 today with the detailed section to a scale of 1:20. All of these sessions we have gone through, question 1, question 2, question 3, and we've taken a little bit of time to work on question 4, as question 4 has a magnitude of 90 to 95 marks, which is slightly short of 50% of the paper. And that is the reason why we are spending so much time on this specific one. And you will see that question 4 has 3 parts: civil floor plan, elevations, both to scale 1:50. And today we are finishing off with a detailed section of 1:20. One of the questions that normally is not very, or one of the parts of this particular question that is normally not very well answered, specifically the roof. And I'm hoping that you will pick up a few tips today to be able to make sure that you complete this part of this particular section of question 4. Okay, I'm going to just move to the question paper that I'm using, and please, if you can download this paper, it is the 2018 paper, which I'm using as an example, and just to revise through this paper to ensure that you are well on track and prepared. Now, you will see that we will be covering 4.2 today, of which we've done 4.1 last week and the week before, 4.1 and 4.1.2. Here we have using the incomplete foundation and break line on page 6, and that is going to be the page that you will see right over here. Just to take you to that page, that is page 6. There's the break line. Yes, here's the break line. Sorry, I just want to take you there. That's the break line and the foundation. That is what we are talking about. That is on the page which you are going to draw. And it states further that to a scale of 1:20, very importantly, we have a tendency of making the mistake of dividing everything by 50 because the previous ones are all 1:50, but this one is 1:20, which means it becomes a detailed section on cutting plane AA of the area in which the ellipse shown on the incomplete floor plan. Now, you can either go and visit this side where the floor plan is, which is right there, or alternatively, you can go down to your actual drawing page, and you need to show everything from this point over here until that point over there. And the fact that the arrows are pointed that way means that you are standing literally on this side here where my pencil is, and I'm looking, as my arrow indicated, into that space here. So everything in the backdrop here will also be seen, and that is sort of the higher order part of this particular section of the question. So keep in mind, if those arrows flip this side, you will obviously have your movement to the opposite side of the pointing of the arrows to be able to see the view of which you need to indicate from that corner or that point to that point. Right, so if you go back to our instructions, you will see that you need to show the following features on the drawing, and that's going to be the complete foundation and external wall detail, right? And you are going to obviously start right here with all of that information that you have there and scale that down to 1:20. You need to show the window detail, and the window that it is going to be cut through is going to be window 2, which you will see there. It cuts through window 2, and you have to go and find where my window 2 is. This is my window 2, so you're going to scale everything down by 20, specifically this drop of the window, right? And then if you go and find the following, you need to go to bulleted point 3, the roof detail, including the fascia board, gutter, and barge boards. This is a reflection of the roof, which we are going to do. And the roof detail, you're going to find here in your roof notes. So you need to familiarize yourself with that information over there. Keep in mind that all of these measurements here that you see are real measurements, and that you have to divide it by 20. And then, of course, there will be a bidet in the background. Now, remember last week when we drew it, there was a bidet that you saw here in the backdrop, and that bidet must also now be brought into view because it forms part of the section that you will see there, right? And how are you going to get the bidet there? You're going to go to your symbols, which you obviously have on your instruction page. Let me take you there. There is your bidet. So we're specifically going to look at that view over there because that shows the elevation of a bidet, not really this view here because that's already part of the floor plan. Remember, these are basically computerized drawings given on this page, but you cannot repeat this drawing. You cannot copy this drawing onto your page because these are not sand symbols. You need to draw the actual sand symbol, which I'm going to show you in a while. And then you need to have all the hatching detail. Very importantly, only the substructure hatching may be drawn in neat freehand, which I will show you as well, right? And then all of that will conclude the detailed section. Now I'm going to stop that screening and I'm going to go over to my workstation, which you are going to see in a moment. And there you will see that I'm busy with my workstation on this side here. I've got my instruction page with me. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this over here. You will see that this part of my foundation already exists on my drawing. It's a given as a starting point. So I will have to take my calculator and divide all of these by 20 to be able to find the dimensions on this section here, which I need to draw. So what I am going to do is simply do that calculation quickly. And once I've done that calculation, I will be able to draw. Once I've done that calculation, I will be able to draw. So I've already done that. So I'm going to start with my wall. So that is 30 over there. I'm going to find the middle, which is 15. And then I'm going to go 5 on this side and 5 on that side. because my wall is actually 10 millimeters in thickness. I'm going to project that faintly up like that. And then I'm going to go to my different slab layers. I'm going to measure up from here, according to my instructions, 25 millimeters. So there I have my 20 plus my 5. That's going to be my 25 that I have there. And that 25 is going to be my natural ground level, which I will have there. And then on top of that 25, I'm going to measure 15. And my 15 is going to be there. And there I've measured my 15. Now, what is important to understand is which side is going to be my inside of my house and which side is going to be my outside. Now, if this is your cut section that you see here, and you will see there, my cut section is there. So I'm taking literally that cut section and I'm flipping it like that, meaning that this part here is my inside, which is on my right-hand side here. So that's going to be my inside of my house. That's going to be my outside. So the inside of my house will have my floor finish with my different layers. As you can see, it develops here. The outside will only have my natural ground level as it is there. And then I will have my slab according to my instructions. I'm going to go down with my slab. My slab is 5 millimeters. Scale down by the 20 scaling that I have. And you will see significantly that my slab actually goes halfway into the wall. So I'm going to put that halfway into the wall. Now I'm going to darken that slab. Right, and I'm drawing as fast as I can because in the exam, neatness, unfortunately, is not a factor. We don't look at neatness. We look at accuracy. But it doesn't matter if your drawing is a bit, not 100% neat. Accuracy is the most important thing. If you're going to focus on neatness and erase, you are going to waste a lot of time. Of course, on top of that, there we will have screed of 1 millimeter apart. That is my screed that I have there. And then on top of that concrete slab, there I'm going to have a thick line which forms my DPC. And remember, I'm going to write DPC there because I know that is my damp-proof course that I have there. Then I'm going to highlight my natural ground level, which I have here on both sides of my wall. And while I'm at it, I'm going to label that your natural ground level as well. Now, that forms basically my foundation. Now, while I'm at it, I can actually hatch that. So what I normally do is that I am going to use my set square, but of course you can use, you don't need to use a set square. You can actually do it freehand, but it looks neater for me and it looks more accurate when you do it with your drawing equipment, but nothing prevents you from drawing it freehand as it indicated in your instruction page. So my earth is going to have lines going at 45 like that, and then it goes to the opposite direction, 45 like that. Now that's going to earn you a mark, and if you do it on the inside, 3 lines evenly spaced apart. We're not very pedantic as to the space of the lines, but you must keep it consistent once you start. So that's going to give you both a mark. Each one will be a mark on both sides of the wall. You will see my wall still remains faint because I need to add some detail on top, and then once I've done that, I will darken my wall. And then, of course, my concrete would just be dots, in the exam, and triangles. So you can have a few triangles and dots. That is also concrete. That's going to be dots and triangles. So that will earn you the mark for hatching. Then you have your compacted hardcore. That's going to be 45 up, 45 down, 45 up, 45 down until you reach your break line, which is that line. that you draw against, which is this line over here. Okay, that's your break line. So there I've got that hatching, which is my compacted hardcore hatching. I have my slab and I have my concrete foundation hatching in there as well as my earth on both sides of my wall. That section of my substructure has been completed. That is the one part of my foundation. That is the one part which forms my foundation of my detailed section. What I'm going to do next is that I'm going to move up and I'm going to put in my window which I'm cutting through. So I'm just going to move this slightly up like that so that you can see what I'm doing. Right. Now, when I look at my instruction, it tells me that there has to be a window in here, but how high is the window? Because on top of my window, you are going to see that there's going to be a lintel, and lintels appear on all doors and windows. But how high? What you need to do is to go to your window and door schedule, because your height of your door and your window would be the same. So if you look at your height of your door, it's going to be 2050 divided by 20 is going to give you 103 millimeters. So on top of my finished floor level, I'm going to measure 103. So 103 is going to be right there. I'm going to mark it and I'm going to draw a line faintly there. I just want to extend this a little bit faintly to the top. It is. So you are going to see now, grade 12s, that is the top of my window, or if you have a door, that's the top of my door. On top of that height, you're going to have your lintel, which is going to be 200 by 80. Now the 200 would be across here, which is divided by 20 will give you 10. And 80 divided by 20 is going to give you 4. So all you need to do is to measure 4 above that lintel, like that. And you need to create the top of that lintel. The lintel would normally split in half. In some cases, it's one thick lintel. In other cases, it must be split in half because it's 2 lintels that will cover over the opening of a door or window in a load-bearing wall, which is a double wall. So they are split it in half. And remember, the lintel is also made of concrete. So you are going to have dots and maybe 1 or 2 triangles in there, which will give you the hatching mark for that specific section. Then you, of course, know that this is the window that you are cutting through, which is window 2, which you've already established there. And you need to just find the drop of the window, which is 900 divided by 20, going to give you 45. So the drop of the window will be under the lintel, drop 45 millimeters, which is there. I'm going to draw a faint line, just there. That's my drop of my window. But I need to indicate my window frame. So I'm going to draw 2 lines in the middle of my wall. Now, there's no specific measurements for the window frame, but it has to be perfectly in the middle of the wall, which will indicate your window frame. And then, of course, this is the outside. So a window has a window sill here, and it has a window sill on the inside. So the window sill on the inside will just be the line that you will see there. That's your window sill. But the window sill on the outside is a little slab that you will find the detail of that right there where it says window notes. So you will read 150 times 25 millimeters tile sill under the windows. So what you need to do with the real measurements, you need to divide that by 20. 150 divided by 20 is going to give you 7.5. We round it off to 8. And 25 divided by 20 is going to give you, we can round that off to 1 millimeter because it's going to be less than 5, 1.25. And the angle that you're going to be drawing it on is going to be 30 degrees. Now, please pay attention how this is drawn. So I'm going to go to the outside line of my window frame, and I'm going to draw a 30-degree line like that there. Because that's 30 degrees, I can flip my set square like that and draw a 90-degree angle at that specific corner. And then you are going to have your 8 millimeters to get your length. So there's my 8. It slightly surpasses the window. And this side, I'm going to have my 1 millimeter, which is going to be right there. And now simply, I can just draw my window sill and complete that. And by darkening that top and bottom and front and back, right? And then once I have that, I will have this line where it crosses the window sill crosses the wall line. I'm going to have a line going back there, and I'm going to have a line coming down like that, like a triangle. And I'm going to darken that. And why do we have that? That is the section where you are going to have concrete which mounts the windowsill to the wall. So that in that little space, you're going to have concrete as well. But I just need to zoom into that section for you to show you what I was doing. So if that would be the window, right? And that is the windowsill that we have there. Then I draw a 30-degree line like that and a 60-degree line like that. I add my 1 millimeter and my 8. 1 millimeter and my 8 to form my windowsill. And then I draw a line from there that way and a line down like that to form that little triangle that you see there. So if you zoom in on that, this is what you see. That is your inside window sill there. And you will have concrete in here, which must be done with dots and a triangle to be able to give you the hatching mark. So that is basically what happens there. Now you have concluded the window, so you can add your little dark lines there and just highlight that what you still have faint. I will now slightly just darken this up until the window top part, which is where my lintels are. So I'm going to draw that down like that there, and I'm going to draw that down, jump over my concrete surface bed, and just continue like that. So you can see now that is my wall. It's taking shape. I've done my window. I haven't done my hatching yet here. I'm going to leave that for a little bit later. And now the most important thing is that I have to put in my roof structure. Now, this is very important how you're going to do the roof, because many learners don't actually attempt the roof in your examination, and very few, and those few who actually do, get it spot on. So if you haven't tried this before, this is an ideal way of getting an understanding of how to interpret the roof. So the first thing that I'm going to do, you need to get your height. You need to get this height here, which is from the floor finish to meter 420 divided by 20 will give you 121. So, and that will form that part there. So 121 from my floor finish is going to be right 120, and 121 will be there. So now, by having that line, I'm going to draw a faint line till there. That's the first line I'm going to draw. I'm going to zoom in on that section over there so that you can clearly see what I do. So that is my bottom line. I'm going to have a wall plate section into my wall here. Now, you will see that they speak about the wall plate in this section here. Now the wall plate is the piece of wood where the truss is basically situated on. It is the layer between the top of the wall and the bottom of the truss. And it is very similar as this over here, the wood of the truss, which is 114 by 38. So if you divide that wall plate, which is going to be situated right here, it's going to be 2 millimeters up. So it is standard measurements, a standard procedure which I'm doing, which basically means that if you follow this before the exam, you can actually go in with preconceived knowledge and just executing the exam. So that line is my height line. So on top of that line, I'm going to measure 2 millimeters there. And I'm going to draw another line right through. You will see I drew it right through. And then from the inside of my wall, I'm going to measure 6 millimeters back. And that 6 millimeters that I'm measuring back will form part of my my wall plate. So I'm darkening that wall plate, top and bottom of my wall plate, right there. That is a piece of wood that actually is situated on top of my wall. So I'm going to darken my wall till there. So there you will see. That is my wall plate there. And the hatching for wood is just a cross. And there I'm drawing it with a cross inside my wood section. And you're going to get a mark. You're going to get a mark for that as the hatching for wood. Now, the wall plate and the branding. And if we talk about branding, that's the piece of wood strips that actually keep the ceiling up. And the ceiling board is nailed to the branding strips, right? And the branding is 38 by 38. If you divide that by 20, you're going to get 2 millimeters by 2. So it's a square piece of branding. And where does it fit in? It fits into this space here, into that gap there. So what you need to do is to create the first branding. Now I'm going to draw any distance away here from my wall, my first line, and then I'm going to measure 2 millimeters, which is very small detail, and I'm going to draw a line there. And now I can actually just darken the top of my branding and the bottom of my branding. And remember, I'm just going to cross that because that's my hatching. There I've got my first branding. Right? Now that branding needs a partner. You need to show 2 branding strips, at least, only 2. Because 1 mark will be for the branding and 1 mark will be for the space in between. And they give you the space here. You just need to go and read it. They say 10 millimeter ceiling board on 38 by 38, which is now 2 by 2 branding strips at 450 cc center to center. So the next branding strip is going to be 450 divided by 20 is going to give you 22 and a half. And you can round it off to 23, and I'm just going to measure from the center, the crossing to the crossing, which is 23. There it is. And on both sides of my mark point, I'm going to draw a line, which means that I have now a 2 millimeter branding strip, which is the second one. And I'm going to cross that like that there. So there are my 2 strips, right? And then the ceiling board will be the bottom. I'm going to darken that, attached to my ceiling. My ceiling is attached to the branding. There, it's nailed there or screwed there, and there you can see that is my ceiling. And my ceiling is so thin that I can just draw a dark line, and the dark line will actually allow me the mark for the branding. Now I'm going to work on my truss. My truss now is this part here where the branding will be attached to to hold my ceiling. So if you look at my truss here, and they speak about the truss is 114 by 38, we only need the 114, which is going to be 6 millimeters. So on top of that, there we're going to have what we call a tie beam, 6 millimeters. So I'm going to measure 6 on top of this line here that you see, and draw a line faintly like that there. Then we have the rafter, which is the angle roof, the angle part, which is the angle part of my hood, which is that part over there, which you're going to see here. That's the sort of angle part, which is going to be 114 as well, which is 6 millimeters. But the pitch of that angle is going to be 20 degrees. Now you have to take your protractor. And where do you keep your protractor? You keep your protractor at the top left-hand corner, which is the inside corner, but the top of your wall plate. You got to keep that perfectly there. Right? You can do it on your T-square. You can keep it perfectly there. And once you have it there, perfectly in the middle, and then you can measure your angle, which is 20, and 20 is going to be right here. I'm going to mark 20. And then I'm going to draw a line from where I anchored my point to the point where I marked it. And that's how I create my angle. Right? That is now 20 degrees. This angle is 20 degrees. So on top of that, I need to measure 6, like I did here, to create my thickness of my thickness of my rafter, which is part of my truss. So I'm going to put 6 there, and I'm going to do 6 millimeters there, and now I'm going to create my truss of 6. There it is. So you can see that. And I'm drawing everything against my break line. So you can see it part how my truss forms. But now where do I cut it off? If you go back to your roof notes, it states here that the roof overhang of 300 millimeters to the end of the roof truss. 300 millimeters divided by 20 is going to give you 15 millimeters. So this is the outside. All I need to do is to measure 15 from my outside part of my wall. 15, there I mark my 15, and then I can cut off that roof truss there, which is my rafter. And then I'm going to darken the section. So there, where the cutoff is, of the overhang part is, you will see it there. And then I'm just going to darken this as well from there to there, so that you can clearly see how my truss is formulated. Right. Now, grade 12, that is not the end of it. On top of my truss, you are going to have to put your purlines. And if you look here, your purlines here says that it is 50 by 75 purlines, because you have sheeting on top of the roof, and the sheeting must be anchored to purlines, and it says here 75 by 50 purlines spaced according to the schematic diagram. And that is the schematic diagram that you will see there. But we first need to create the space for it. And they will also say that the fiber cement sheeting is 10 millimeters. And of course, if you divide that by 20, it's very thin. It's literally a line that you are going to see as the sheeting. But the 75 by 50 is going to be a piece of wood like this, where that height is 75 and this is 50 here. If you divide that by 20, you're going to get 4 millimeters here as your height, and 3 millimeters as the width across here. Okay, so that you got to place, that you have to place on top of your rafter of your roof truss. So I'm going to go and measure an additional 4 millimeters. So there's my 4, and I'm going to do another 4 this side, and there I will have my spacing. Do a faint line there. That's going to be my spacing for my per lines. Now remember, the first one I can draw anywhere, and because I have that on an angle, I can't draw that straight. I can't draw it straight. So what I'm going to do is, because it's on an angle, I'm going to keep one of my set squares on an angle like that, and then I'm going to do my first one, and I'm going to put my first one here on an angle so that it forms a nice 90 degrees with my rafter. And then I said it must be 3 millimeters in thickness. There's my 3, and I'm going to draw that 3 millimeter line there and darken the top part, and then also just add my hatching, which is going to be a crossing there. All right, but remember, similarly like the branding, grade 12, you need to have 2 at least with the spacing. So if you go back to your diagram, you will find that the spacing here would be 950, right? And 950 you have to take onto your calculator and divide that by 20 as well. So if you take your calculator and you say 950, just do that, 950 divided by 20, that's going to give you 47.5. I'm going to make it 48, rounded off to 48. So my gap between my 2 per lines is going to be 48. From the center, 48, which is going to be right there. And then once I have that, I know that that's my center where I made the point, and I go 1.5 and 1.5, which will give me my 3. I'm going to take my set square again to keep it like that in line, and I'm simply going to draw the first line and my second line like that there, which gives me 3 millimeters. I'm going to close the top and do my hatching, and there I have my 2 per lines. What I can do now is just to add a dark line on top, which will represent my sheeting. And there's my sheeting, and my sheeting goes slightly further here than my end of my rafter. So when it rains and water falls onto my sheeting, it has to go into a gutter, and we're going to draw the gutter. But the gutter is attached to a fascia board, and you will see here that the fascia board is 200 by 20, which is literally going to be 10 millimeters by 1 millimeter. And the fascia board goes against, and I'm going to draw a line there that it goes against my end of my rafter at the overhang, and I'm going to have to measure 1 millimeter thickness, because it's 20 divided by 20. There it is. And then I'm going to draw a straight line against my sheeting, which is the top of my fascia board. And my fascia board being 200 divided by 20 is going to give me 10 millimeters. So I'm going to measure 10 millimeters down, and there's my 10. And there I have included my fascia board. Let me just highlight that a little bit. Make it dark for you so that you can see both sides of my fascia board. And there I have my fascia board. Then attached to my fascia board, you will continue reading the roof notes. There needs to be a gutter. And the gutter, you will see, will have 150 by 100, which is 8 millimeters by 5, if you divide that by 20. So your gutter is going to look like that, where this is going to be 5 and that's going to be 8. So let's do that gutter. I'm going to have the gutter drawn anywhere in that space there. So my bottom line is going to be my 8 line, which I'm going to measure off 8 millimeters. So that is my first point, and then 8 millimeters apart. And then I'm going to draw my sides, and you know my sides must be 5 millimeters in height. There is my 5 millimeters, and now I can just simply draw that gutter, the bottom and the top, and then of course I will have my side there. And there's my gutter. And then the last part of this roof structure is going to be my barge boards, which is 300 by 75, 300 meaning that it is 15 millimeters divided by 20, and that is simply going to be the top of my barge boards. I'm going to draw a line slightly past my gutter, and 300 will be 15, which means that I will measure from here 15 till there, and maybe a 15 till here to make it nice and parallel. And then I'm going to draw a line until it reaches my wall, and I'm going to draw a dark line there, and to close it off at the end of my barge boards. So that returns on the side, but I won't be able to see it because it stops where I have my wall. So that forms my barge boards there. And now I can just complete my top of my wall, which is going to be a line going straight up until it reaches my sheeting. I'm going to have the middle of that going up as well, and then this will come across to meet up with that middle, and I will just conclude by darkening that section there. Now grade 12s, my hatching needs to come in, and I'm going to bring in my hatching from the top. You will obviously clear this section because the roof is behind the wall, so you will clear that. The roof truss is behind the wall, so my hatching will start here, 2 lines, gap, 2 lines, and you will continue right down, gap, 2 lines. Try and keep it not too, the spaces not too big, so that you can have even hatching going from the top right down. So that is going to score you the marks for the hatching that you will have here at the bottom section and at the top. And now, just before we conclude, there's one more part that comes in, which is going to be the bidet that you see at the back, because we've got the roof structure, everything is in the roof. We've got the barge boards, we've got the gutter, we've got the fascia board. Remember, the fascia board can either go, the fascia board and the gutter can touch, or you can keep it a millimeter away, doesn't matter. You have your 2 purlines, you have your 2 branding, you have your truss, you have your wall plate, all of those things are there, and you have this section that goes up, which is your beam filling that you will have up until the sheeting, so that birds do not come into the roof and nest inside. And that's the reason why we are doing this right up until the sheeting. So in the backdrop, as you will see here in my drawing, there will be a bidet that you will see at the back. Now, just to show you, if that bidet is here, right, you will have that symbol as the bidet, but the actual sand symbol will look like this. Just to draw it for you very quickly, it's going to be that there, which is the top, and this part at the bottom here is the sand symbol for the bidet. So you have to take these dimensions here, divide that by 20, so that you can draw that over there in the backdrop. But how far do you draw it away? If you have this distance here, So you need to measure this distance here where it starts from the inside wall to the start of the bidet. That distance, for example, is, in this case, if I measure mine, it's going to be like 4 millimeters. So I'm going to go to my calculator and I'm going to say 4 millimeters times, and I'm going to convert that back to the original size. So times 50, and I'm going to have an answer which says 200, and then I divide that by 20 because I'm going to scale it down to this size, which is going to be 10. That means that now, grade 12, if I'm going to draw it here, I'm going to measure 10 away, and that's how far it's going to be from my wall. Remember, you scaled it back, that distance times by 50 to get it back to the original size, which is 200, divided by 20, which is 10, which you scaled this down to the detail section. And now you will simply draw in your bidet, and your bidet size is going to be across 25. So it's going to be 25 across here, and I'm going to draw my 25 section there. And my height of my bidet is going to be 22 on the bottom. So there is going to be my 22 millimeters, just to make sure that I've got it right. 22. So I've got my 22 in there. And then if I look at my bidet, which I'm reading my measurements from here, it's going to be 150 down, divided by 20 is going to be 8 millimeters. So there's my 8. I'm going to draw that top part. And then the other part that comes down is going to be 200, which is divided by 20 is going to be 10. So that's going to be 10 millimeters, which I am going to have there. So I'm actually drawing the symbol that I've shown you, which is right there. And then, of course, I also need to have the section, which is this part over here, which is literally not given to you. And remember, the rule states, if anything is not, any dimension is not given, you must proportionally assume that dimension. And in this case, that dimension has not been given. So you are proportionally going to assume that by doing a 5 millimeters from this side and a 5 millimeters from this side. And now I'm going to darken the sections of my bidet. All the vertical sides first, and then I'm going to draw my horizontal parts. And that is basically what I see at the back of my detail section, which is my bidet. And that literally completes the drawing. Everything that we have been instructed to do has been completed. The memo will simply look like that. If you zoom into that memo, you will find that that is where the bidet is. That is where all the substructure items are and the hatching. That is where the window detail is. That is where the roof structure is, and the details of all the components that form the roof structure. And every single line that you will see there is basically a mark which allocate you 34.5 marks for that specific detailed section. So I hope you've taken heed of what I explained, the 3 sections, and that it will help you when it comes to this particular area in your NSC exam, which is your detailed section. And with that, I conclude. I hope you have benefited from this afternoon session, and I hope that it will help you when it comes to your NSC exam as well. The only thing that I can leave you with is to say practice, practice, practice until you get perfection out of it. Thank you very much. Shukran so much. I hope that you will benefit from the session.
We say Jazakallah khair, shukran. Terima kasih to Mr. Riedwaan Bassier for so beautifully facilitating today's session. And of course, that was engineered and geared towards all of the engineering graphics design students who are preparing for the upcoming NSC exams. We'd like to thank Riedwaan Bassier for so beautifully facilitating today's session. And with that, beloved viewers, that brings us to the end of the Voice of the Cape's online matric revision program for today. And of course, the matric revision sponsored by the Two Oceans Graduate Institute, which is an accredited online platform where you can become a primary school or a high school teacher by studying in the privacy of your own home. If you'd like to find out more information, you may visit them on their website. The website, of course, of the Two Oceans Graduate Institute being www.togi.ac.za, or you may call them on the number 021 829 7015. On behalf of ourselves here at the Voice of the Cape, we thank our esteemed facilitator, Mr. Riedwaan Bassier, for so beautifully going through the content for the NSC exams, particularly for the engineering, graphics, and design students. And we encourage all of the students out there who are viewing the Voice of the Cape's YouTube page and Facebook page to please forward and share this link with all of those students who are preparing for the EGD, as well as to look at all of the other sessions whereby we are offering all of the matric revision sessions content on the various subjects as well, also on the Voice of the Cape's Facebook page and YouTube page. We say shukran, jazakallah khair, and terima kasih. Until the next time, when we meet again in our next session, we say to you, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and all of the very best.